Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my channel, Marriage, Politics, and Sports. Here we have another White House press briefing by Karoline Leavitt, and we're going to see what she has to say. And I know it's already going on live, so I'm going to start from the beginning. So I'm going to be lagging what she says. I haven't really, I haven't looked at any of this stuff, so I'll be reviewing this in real time and see what she says. If I have any comments, I'm going to say something like I always do. So buckle up. Let's see what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Let's see what she has to say. Let's get started. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the like button on the way in. I'd appreciate that. Hit the like button, and we'll go from there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I apologize for the delay. I was once again with the president. He and I were both reviewing the newly released surveillance footage from FBI in the Savannah Guthrie case on just this heartbreaking situation with respect to her mother. The president encourages any American across the country with any knowledge of this suspect to please call the FBI, who continue to assist state and local authorities who are leading this investigation on the ground. And once again, I will reiterate that the prayers of this entire White House are with Savannah and her family at this time. And we hope this person is found soon and that her mother is brought home safely.
It's a really strange case. And I know it seems sad and everybody's trying to stay optimistic, but the longer this thing takes, it's hard to keep your head above water. I don't know what kind of nefarious crap has been going on, but let's just pray for the lady, see what's going on. Hopefully they'll find her, and she'll still be alive, and they can keep her well.
President Trump has a very busy week ahead, so I will begin with some scheduling announcements today. Tomorrow, here at the White House, the president will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a bilateral meeting. The remainder of the week will be focused on energy and deregulation. Tomorrow afternoon, the president will hold an event in the East Room to tout clean, beautiful coal as America's most reliable and affordable energy source, especially during periods of peak demand, just as we saw during this most recent winter storm, which impacted hundreds of millions of Americans. The president will discuss how clean, beautiful coal is not only keeping the lights on in our country, but also driving down the cost of electricity across the country.
Did she say clean, beautiful coal? I'm old enough to remember the furnaces where we had to shovel coal in there. And so with the raging fires and shit like that, to keep the buildings warm, we used to have delivery trucks come and just dump a whole shitload of coal, and we had to shovel that in to the furnace. I remember those days. It's clean, beautiful coal. I love that.
As well. Additionally, on Thursday, President Trump will be joined by Administrator Lee Zeldin to formalize the rescission of the 2009 Obama-era endangerment finding. This will be the largest deregulatory action in American history, and it will save the American people $1.3 trillion in crushing regulations. The bulk of the savings will stem from reduced costs for new vehicles, with the EPA projecting average per vehicle savings of more than $2,400 for popular light-duty cars, SUVs, and trucks. This is just one more way this administration is working to make life more affordable for everyday Americans. Overall, these groundbreaking actions from President Trump will drive larger economic growth, create thousands of good-paying jobs, expand manufacturing, increase consumer choice, and improve affordability for millions of families and businesses. Finally, on Friday, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will travel to Fort Bragg in the great state of North Carolina to meet with military families and the heroic members of our special forces who carried out the successful Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela and helped bring narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro to justice. I know the president and First Lady are both greatly looking forward to this visit. Also, the First Lady will celebrate Valentine's Day at the Children's Inn at the National Institute of Health tomorrow, with children, families, and NIH staff involved in clinical trials. In other news this week, thanks to President Trump signing the largest middle-class tax cut in history.
One of the things when we talk about cost, On either side of the aisle, can whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, can anybody really be a champion of keeping our costs down? It's a bipartisan grift. They've been stealing money from us on both sides for all of our lives. Nobody's better than the other guy. It just depends on where the money's going. One true thing is that everybody in the Congress and everybody in the Senate gets rich, right? So I think this whole thing about the budget is a wash. It really is. I mean, who is really saving us money? It's just what the money's being spent on. So that's just me talking. You live long enough, you know that there's no where it's them against us. The American people is being grifted, and it's as simple as that.
This is shaping up to be the biggest tax refund season ever, and we are in it now. President Trump and Republicans fundamentally believe that Americans deserve to keep more of their hard earned money, not less, which is why he fought so hard to deliver this long overdue relief. From no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security to auto loan interest deductions on new American made vehicles, plus increases to the standard deduction and child tax credit, more money is flowing back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. We're already hearing from everyday Americans across the country who are reporting substantial tax savings thanks to the Working Families Tax Cut, which every single Democrat in Congress voted against. AMAC.
Well, let me tell you, anybody who put their taxes in yet, is this true? I mean, if you have, real data on that right now, I never put my taxes in until April. So if anybody already put their taxes in, just say, yeah, I did. And I see more money coming back at me. And what she's saying is true, or saying you don't see a difference. Put that in the chat.
Which represents millions of Americans, has heard directly from more than their 1,000 members already about how the Trump tax cuts are easing cost of living concerns. I wanted to share a few of those powerful responses with you today. This one comes from Dean and Wendy in Wisconsin, who said, quote, instead of paying out $3,700 last year, we got back $2,500 in refunds this year. This is huge for our family. Steve from California said, quote, the new senior citizen deduction is a tremendous relief and has given us peace of mind and the freedom to truly enjoy the retirement years we worked so hard for. Eric from Nevada said, as a senior, no tax on Social Security helps me tremendously. The no tax on tips helps my daughter in law as a waitress. The no tax on overtime helps my son, who works constantly. Our family savings from the One Big Beautiful Bill could total even more than $5,000. We love the Trump tax cuts. These are just a few positive examples of the everyday Americans that President Trump's tax cuts are uplifting. We'd love to hear more from the American people across the country who are benefiting from the Working Families Tax Cut.
See, now, this is one thing that you can measure after this tax season. Some people calling her a liar, but, we'll have some real evidence as to actuals, in a few short months. As a matter of fact, it's an ongoing thing. So some people put their taxes in early. So we'll know whether she's telling the truth or not real fast. You know what I'm saying? We'll all be a witness to that if you're paying your taxes. So we'll see, because I certainly could use some relief for my taxes. I'm supposed to be one of the senior citizenship, but I pay a lot of taxes.
The White House is also pleased to share that parents across the country can now officially apply to open a Trump account for their child. In order to apply, parents can visit trumpaccounts.gov and fill out the IRS form 4547. These Trump accounts are special investment accounts aimed at providing American children with a jump start on building wealth for life. They have all the tax advantages as a traditional IRA account, but are specifically tailored to build wealth the moment a child is born. Thanks to President Trump, every child born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028 is eligible to receive $1,000 from the U.S. Treasury to fund their account. Parents, guardians, and even nonprofits can then contribute up to $5,000 per year. Employers can also contribute up to $2,500 per year per employee. President Trump believes there is no better investment than investing in our nation's children.
See, now I think this one is a good idea as well. How could you argue about saving money from a person, a kid at birth, through their lifetime? I think this is a good idea.
If you are a parent who maximizes contributions to your child's Trump account, its projected value could.
The only problem I really have with Trump on a lot of this shit that he's doing, he's got to keep putting his name on everything. I mean, he's just a quintessential narcissist, and that bothers me. I mean, it's not creative at all. I mean, your legacy doesn't have to have your name on every goddamn thing. I can't imagine a battle he had to go through for them to tell him you can't name the ballroom after yourself. I mean, it's an issue. I mean, it's a real issue with this dude. He's stopping money if you don't name it after me, like the new Penn Station. Nobody wants to name this shit after you, Trump. Fuck that. It's just fine the way it is.
Reach nearly $1.1 million by the time your child turns 28 years old, based on average historical stock market returns. Safe to say the Trump accounts will give a substantial head start to position the next generation for a brighter future. And with the stock market exploding under President Trump's pro growth policies, there has never been a better time to sign up for an investment account like this. The Dow Jones just shattered 50,000 for the first time ever on Friday, and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq continue smashing record after record. So with President Trump in charge, Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming once again, and these new Trump accounts for America's kids will boom too. So with that, once again, every parent should go to trumpaccounts.gov today, and I'm going to put it on my own personal to-do list to sign up for one as well. With that, I will take your questions. Karoline Downey from the National Review is here. Thank you for being here, and why don't you kick us off?
Thank you for having me. On the criticism that immigration enforcement has become arbitrary or not particularly prioritizing, Democrats have been circulating this statistic that only 14% of illegal aliens arrested under this administration are violent criminals. But we know that in deep blue cities with progressive district attorneys, it's common to plead down serious violent crimes into less serious offenses, which could be destroying those numbers. So given that backdrop, does the administration still stand by the messaging that you're targeting the worst of the worst? And does this prevailing narrative tell the whole story?
Well, thank you for bringing this up, Karoline. I've seen this CBS report floating around. There's a lot of liberal talking heads and pundits and Democrat elected politicians who think that this single story and these statistics and the way they are painted is somehow a shot at this administration. It is not. And let me correct the record. Number one, the Trump administration has been clear from day one that any illegal alien present in this country is subject to deportation. However, the priority, of course, is going after the convicted criminals, the worst of the worst, the murderers.
The one thing that the subtlety of what she just said, that when they first started talking about deporting illegal aliens, they did overemphasize the worst of the worst. And it should have always been that any illegal alien that's stopped is subject to this deportation, and we will target the worst of the worst. But if we catch you and you're out of compliance, you are subject to deportation. That should have been the message from the absolute beginning. And they didn't really say that across the board loud enough. And the one thing, the biggest thing is, how come the Republicans have not challenged all of these sanctuary states as to the constitutionality of being a sanctuary state in opposition to the federal government? I mean, that shit has to be adjudicated in the courts. I mean, you see all these leftist judges stopping Trump's executive orders at every turn. But whole states can say, you know what, we're going to protect illegal aliens from the federal government by calling ourselves sanctuaries. And nobody challenged that shit in court. That shit should be at the Supreme Court, right up there with birthright citizenship and everything else. And because it's clearly an unconstitutional thing to be a sanctuary city in direct opposition to federal law. It's a simple one for me. I could adjudicate that fucking case.
pedophiles, the rapists in
Excuse
this
my
country.
language.
Interestingly, in the CBS story, what the Democrat talking heads on television are not saying is this line. Nearly 60% of ICE arrestees over the past year had criminal charges or convictions. And among that population, the majority of the criminal charges or convictions are for nonviolent crimes. Oh, well, what are nonviolent crimes, you ask? This has coincided with what DHS has been saying all along, that approximately 70% of illegal aliens arrested under President Trump have pending criminal charges and or prior convictions. And these so-called nonviolent crimes, drug trafficking, distribution of child porn, burglary, fraud, DUI, embezzlement, solicitation of a minor, and human smuggling, just to name a few. So just because a crime is not violent in nature doesn't mean that crime is victimless. And I can guarantee every single person who is out there on television right now pointing to these statistics that were taken out of context by CBS News would not want an illegal alien convicted of the distribution of child porn or fraud or DUI living in your community. So the Trump administration will continue our focus on deporting all illegal aliens present in our country with a focus on the worst of the worst criminals. Thank you for being here. Gabe.
Before we go on, the question about, why don't they at least investigate the insurrectionists? I think that every not senator, but every governor and mayor in these blue sanctuary cities has said enough publicly that they could at least be sent to a grand jury for sedition and insurrection. I mean, how many of these guys are calling for violence against ICE? And how many of them are talking about hiding illegal aliens? If you just listen to their words, what about that? Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. Some of these guys are guilty outright. Mayor Fry, his ass should be in jail. Tampon Timmy, he should be. These guys should actually be under indictment in a grand jury. There's no doubt about it. They said enough to really convict them by their own words, just like Don Lemon. He was no journalist inside that church. He was an insurrectionist.
Karoline, thank you. And thank you for the update on our colleague Savannah Guthrie's mother. Is there anything more you can share? You said the president was reviewing that surveillance footage. What was his initial reaction when seeing those disturbing images? And does he believe that that suspect acted alone?
I haven't talked to him specifically about the second point on whether the suspect acted alone or not. So I don't want to weigh in on the president's thinking on that. His initial reaction, of course, as all Americans, is just pure disgust. And again, it's heartbreaking to see now this footage really bring to life a story we've all been reading about. And again, we're just praying for the safety of Nancy Guthrie and that she will return home soon. And the president directed me to please encourage all Americans with any information to call the FBI. And we hope that this case will come to a positive resolution as soon as possible.
We, of course, have a lot to talk about and a completely separate topic. I was hoping you can clarify something that's come up over the last several days, again, regarding a separate topic, the Epstein files. According to newly released files, the president had a conversation with the Palm Beach police chief in the early 2000s, according to the police chief in 2019. The president has gone on record before, and he's told reporters that he said that he had no idea about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. During this conversation with the police chief, however, he did say, according to this recounting of it, that thank goodness you're stopping him. He also called Karoline Maxwell evil. So my two questions are, did that conversation with the Palm Beach police chief happen? And can you explain the discrepancy?
What I will say is that the president has always remained consistent and that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club at Mar-a-Lago because, frankly, Jeffrey Epstein was a creep. And unlike many other people who are named in these files, President Trump cut off his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and was honest and transparent about that for years and years. And so I think what the president has said all along has always remained true. And the release of more than 3 million documents related to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous, disgusting crimes just shows the level of transparency that this president and administration has committed to and bringing these files to light.
But did he call the chief in 2006? Caroline, did he call the chief?
Look, phone call that may or may not have happened in 2006. I don't know the answer to that question. What I'm telling you is that what President Trump has always said is that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club because Jeffrey Epstein was a creep. And that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning. And I'm sure many of you, when you read that alleged FBI report, probably thought to yourself, wow, this really cracks our narrative that we've been trying to push about this president for many years. So,
Well, you know, the thing about this, right? Whether you believe, whether you hate Donald Trump or not, with all of the lawfare and all of the weaponization of DOJ to come after Donald Trump, if the Democrats had any credible evidence that Donald Trump was involved with Epstein, I mean, common sense would have said they would have led with that way before the goddamn election. All 4 years of the Biden administration trying to crucify this man, they had all the information. If they really had anything tying him to, you know, the depravity of Epstein, you don't think the Democrats would have used that shit by now? This is all a smokescreen. It's not to say that Trump is some saint or not, but it's just common sense, right? It's Occam's razor. If they had anything against him, they wouldn't use it. You know, do you got to pour through what 3 million pages to find if Donald Trump, diddled a little girl? I mean, come on. It's just the craziest shit in the whole world. We all wasting a lot of time. There's a lot of survivors from the Epstein case. I don't understand why they can't just name the names of the people who touched them. Forget what, how you going to ferret that shit out of 1 million documents that have been redacted? If I'm a survivor of sexual assault, I'm naming the person who touched me. I don't give a shit about lawsuits and all of that kind of stuff, right? Mr. X or Mrs. X did this to me, and we'll fight it out in court. I mean, all of this is just bullshit, man, and we're all falling for it. So I don't know, man. It just doesn't make any sense. In a traditional sexual assault case, the victims name and point directly to the people who touched them. They didn't have to go through 1,000 documents for that shit. Who touched you? And just tell us who did it. And let's fight that shit out in court. Let that person hire a lawyer, just like everybody else, and prove their innocence. It's just crazy, man.
We're moving on from that. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I want to ask you about the SAVE Act. NBC reported that there's some hesitation among House Republicans on adding absentee ballot restrictions into the SAVE Act. Can you explain what the hesitation is among House Republicans and also just provide the status of negotiations with Congress on the legislation?
Sure. I can't speak for...
I don't have to be a survivor for that. I know people who've been sexually assaulted. And they actually pointed to the people who actually did it. Nobody asked us to read 1 million documents to prove it. It's just bullshit. Who did it? You lodge a fucking complaint with the police. And then the police goes to the DA and says, do we have enough credible evidence to go to a grand jury? All of this is just bullshit, man. How are you going to read a page with somebody's name and then extrapolate that to whether they really touched somebody when there's 100 survivors walking around and they're all adults now? It's just crazy. They got this lady doing a goddamn circuit of her being a survivor. I don't think she's lying. Just name the people who touched you, goddamn it, and stop wasting a lot of time. Who did it? Who did it? As simple as that. And let's go to court.
House Republicans, Reagan, I can obviously speak for the president, who is quite possibly the strongest supporter of the Save America Act, which, as you know, would require proof of citizenship to register to vote. It would require proof of identification, a photo identification before casting a ballot. And it would also ensure that there are exceptions made. I think that's what you're alluding to with these conversations with House Republicans for reasonable requests, of course, for our military, for individuals individuals who are disabled and cannot make it to the polls. Those are reasonable, common sense things that I believe House Republicans are discussing amongst themselves. But as for the president, he's been very clear. He wants House Republicans and Democrats too, if they were.
All right, so listen, okay. I would agree that some people probably did and the police ignored them. But you think ferreting through millions of documents is going to make their case stronger? I don't believe it will. I just don't believe it will. It's not. Now that this shit has been brought to light, those protections aren't as strong as they used to be. They're naming a lot of names in this thing now. So in the beginning, when these kids were younger, I agree with you. You could hide behind this veil, and they're still hiding behind the veil. But don't you think there's a lot more light being shed on this? And why do you have to just rename them and bring that to light? I've seen press conferences with all of these victims out there. The lawyers are telling them not to name names. Why? They got lawyers now. The whole fucking country's energized around this thing. You think they're going to protect the wealthy? I know how did Weinstein get put on trial in? How did some of these millionaire guys get put on trial? They're not protecting everybody, So, and I don't think you're going to ferret shit out of redacted documents, and that's why they're arguing about that now, right? They got this plan on what documents they're going to redact. And I tell you what, just like anybody else in this audience right now, if I give you 6 paragraphs of something, the only thing you're going to care about is what's under the black ink. Right? So if you have to redact the documents at all, then the whole shit ain't no good, because all I'm going to care about is what are you hiding? And that's what they're talking about now, that Pam Bondi is hiding too much information. Well, she may be, but there was an agreement what could be redacted and what shouldn't be redacted. Now they don't like the agreement no more. This is just a monumental waste of time, and it's bipartisan. There's enough Democrats on that list, enough Republicans on that list, enough conservatives and liberals on that list. And I'm in the documents in all fashions. I know Jeffrey Epstein. I met Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago or this thing. If they mention your name, then all of a sudden, does that mean you're a pedo? It's just ridiculous. I'm not saying it should go away, but I think there's an easier path to justice than pouring through 3 million sheets of paper or electronics or whatever the hell they're doing now. It's crazy. It's just really crazy.
Politically wise to pass this legislation, for the Senate to pass it, to send it to the president's desk so it can be signed into law.
I'm wondering when the last time the president spoke to Leavitt was, and if he discussed using the standing filibuster to pass legislation.
The president has given his position on the standing filibuster. As for his most recent conversation with Leader Thune, frankly, I'm not sure. I do know they speak very frequently. The president's in constant communication with both leaders.
Thune's a waste of, if the Republicans don't get rid of the filibuster, they're going to lose everything. They don't play by the same rules as the liberals. The liberals are cutthroat monsters, and the Republicans are really soft. They should use every level of power right now to seize the moment, and they got to get rid of the filibuster. All these executive orders are going to go away.
Leader Thune and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. Stephen, I see we switched up our seating chart. Your direct line of sight now. Congratulations.
Thank you to the Correspondents Association for recognizing.
Hit the like button, whether you like this or not. Hit the like button, hit the down like button if you want to, but hit something. I appreciate you coming by and just sharing a moment with me. I'm looking at this real time, so I know it's a little bit lagging the live, but hey, I like listening to Karoline and these questions. Maybe I'll learn something.
The New York Post's reach. I've got 2 questions for you. One about the Guthrie case, and then another about infrastructure. On the Guthrie case, does President Trump have a warning to the culprits here about what would happen to them, what federal consequences they would face if they do not release Nancy Guthrie unharmed?
I think anyone who was involved in this depraved crime, this abduction, of course, we want to be seen held to the fullest extent of the law possible.
infrastructure. Can you explain why President Trump asked Chuck Schumer to help him rename Penn Station and Dulles Airport after himself? Why is he interested in having his name on those two buildings? And why are the Gateway Tunnel funds the proper point of pressure to get that tapped?
To your first question about the renaming, why not? It was something the president floated in his conversation with Chuck Schumer. As for the funding, the president.
That's just childish, man. Nobody wants to go to no fucking Trump station, okay? Nobody, even his supporters. You know, the name is Penn Station for a purpose. We don't need to name every damn thing you do after you, Trump. You know, I mean, golly, man. You know, sometimes if you think you're a great person, you have to let history call you great. You don't have to try to leave your mark while you're still alive and shit. You know, I mean, it's just narcissism at its greatest. And I don't even like to use that word, but I think it's a flaw. You know, and you can't extort your way to fame. If you don't name this shit after me, I'ma just not give you the money. That's just childish as hell, man. It is childish. And you're almost 80 years old, man. Cut out the bullshit.
Has addressed that separately himself. Danny.
Thanks. Today, the Vice President's account posted and then deleted a tweet about the Armenian genocide. And then last week, President Trump's Truth Social account posted and then deleted a racist video about the Obamas. And the White House again blamed that on a staffer. I wanted to ask you, does the White House have a social media problem at the moment? Do you have an auto-posting problem that's leading to these mistakes?
No. As for the Armenian tweet that you're referring to, I would just refer you back to the White House's message that was issued on Armenian Remembrance Day, and there's been no change of policy at this time. Mary.
Thanks, Karoline. When the president goes to Beijing in the spring, does he have plans to try and advocate on behalf of Jimmy Lai, who was just sentenced to 20 years yesterday?
This is something I've heard the president advocate for both publicly and privately. I had the honor of being in that meeting with President Trump and President Xi in South Korea that took place, and this was brought up by the president himself. It is important to him, and he looks forward to visiting China in April. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. So some Republican lawmakers from Nebraska have said they're worried that the Argentinian beef executive order will sideline some American ranchers. How will the Trump administration make sure prices go down for consumers without harming those ranchers?
Of course. Well, both things can happen at the same time. That's the president's belief. He wants to see prices come down. In fact, I just overheard him on the phone with Secretary Rollins. They were talking about something different, but he's always saying we got to make sure that prices continue to come down. As you know, Secretary Rollins successfully did that with respect to egg prices. Beef prices are coming down slightly, and the president wants to see that continue. He believes that a minor import to the country with cattle might be a short-term solution with respect to bringing down prices. But of course, protecting our American cattle and rancher industry is a priority for the president. And he's in touch with those stakeholders. We've had them here at the White House a few times in recent months to discuss this issue directly. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Yesterday, the president on social media threatened to block the new Gordie Howe Bridge, which would connect Detroit to Canada. This is a bridge that was fully paid for by Canada. It used American labor to construct it. It used American steel to construct that bridge. The president in 2017 was actually in favor of this bridge, part of a joint statement that he put out when he met with the Canadian Prime Minister. Why has the president changed his mind as it relates to this bridge?
I think the president was very clear and direct in his truth, John. But just to reiterate, the fact that Canada will control what crosses the Gordie Howe Bridge and owns the land on both sides is unacceptable to the president. It's also unacceptable that more of this bridge isn't being built with more American-made materials, even more so than what President Barack Obama committed to with the Canadians at the time, at the start of the project. He also believes that the U.S. should own at least half of the bridge, have shared authority over what passes across it, and participate in the economic benefits generated by its use. This is just,
you know, before she goes on, listen, I don't know nothing about this bridge, but we have to stop these bad deals. If there's a bridge that goes across from America to anywhere, I mean, Canada, we need to own part of that shit. Yeah, man. I mean, it's just common sense. What kind of deal was made that Canada would own some land in the United States because they built a bridge. Man, that's bullshit. You know, I mean, why are we so easy? Just like the Panama Canal should have never been given over to Panama. It's the dumbest shit in the whole world. So many Americans died building that goddamn structure, and we're gonna give it over to some podunk asshole down. You know, I mean, it's just dumb, dumb. Why we, we got this prevailing thing where, in America, where we think we should just give shit away to people. Like this, the real issue with the illegal aliens, there's so many Americans think that we should just let people come over here and just reap the benefits of being an American without being a citizen. This is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a big Trumpite, but on this one, I agree. In the beginning, I said, well, what's this bridge about? Why are we going to give all that control to Canada, especially if it's going to touch American soil? That's just bullshit, man. These are just bad deals.
It's another example of President Trump putting America's interests first. And so he made that very clear in his call with Prime Minister Carney earlier today. Phil.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem just posted a photo of herself signing the last contract to build a border wall between Laredo, Del Rio, and Big Bend, Texas, among reports that construction had stalled. Is the president satisfied with the pace of construction?
The president wants to make sure that the full border wall is built as quickly as possible, of course. I know this is a priority for him dating back to 2016. And so absolutely, he wants to ensure that the border wall is built under budget and ahead of schedule is how President Trump likes to view building projects, and that includes the border wall.
The pace of construction thus far?
I think the president is never satisfied. He always wants to ensure that things are moving along as quickly as possible. But I know Secretary Noem is on it, and she's doing a great job. You're welcome. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
Charlie.
On the Nancy Guthrie case, is the president satisfied with the federal and local investigation so far? And has there been any more contact from the White House or the president with the family?
I don't think anybody will be satisfied until this case is brought to a close and until Nancy Guthrie is returned home safely with her loved ones.
Contacts? Has the president contacted the family since?
Not since that initial phone call. Sure, Tamara.
Thank you. The National Governors Association is removing a meeting with President Trump from his agenda because only Republicans were invited. Is the White House reconsidering inviting Democrats, or do you think Republicans are still going to show up? Where does that stand now?
No, look, I just spoke with the president about this. It is a dinner at the White House. It's the people's house. It's also the president's home. And so he can invite whomever he wants to dinners and events here at the White House. I believe Governor Moore was invited last year and he did not show up to the dinner last year. Nobody reported on it. But again, the president has the discretion to invite whomever he wants to the White House, and he welcomes all those who received an invitation to come. And if they don't want to, that's their loss.
Okay, so he's the president, right? But let's just take it to each one of us in the audience, right? It's my house, your house. Are you going to invite people over to your house who are calling you shithole, Nazi, monster, all kinds of everything other than a child of God? That's what they call you. And you're going to invite them to your house for dinner? Why? Why would I invite Westmoreland, whatever his fucking name is, or Tampon Timmy, or Pritzker, or Gavin Newsom, or any of these guys who routinely call me everything other than a child of God, Nazi, murderer, pedo, all this shit? Why would I want to break bread with these fucking guys? Why? So I wouldn't invite them either. And any of the Republican governors who don't show up because he's not going to invite guys who routinely call him out of his name, they don't have their priorities straight. I wouldn't invite these assholes either. Just on a human level, forget about politics. How many of your enemies do you invite to your house for dinner?
Maxwell, is the president going to rule out a pardon for her in her testimony, deposition yesterday, her legal team seemed to be making a case again for a pardon from the president.
Again, this is not something I've discussed with the president recently because, frankly, it's not a priority. He's focused on many of the issues that the American people are dealing with and providing solutions to those issues. So I haven't spoken with him recently. Last time we did speak about it, he said it's not something he's considering or thinking about. Go ahead, Bloomberg.
Thanks, Caroline. Secretary Lutnick today was testifying on the Hill, and he said that he had visited Epstein's Island in 2012 with his wife and children. And that's after he said that he had cut ties with Epstein. And the Justice Department documents show that he was in contact with Epstein through 2018 over messages. So does the White House stand behind Secretary Lutnick right now? Or given what he has said today, has there been any shift in how the White House is viewing Secretary Lutnick's performance?
No, Secretary Lutnick remains a very important member of President Trump's team, and the president fully supports the secretary. I will just point out that there are a lot of wins in the news this week that people in this room have not asked about because you continue to ask questions about the same subject. So let me point them out for you. Again, on Friday, the Dow shattered 50,000 for the first time ever. This week, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons came out in opposition to gender mutilation surgeries for children. They are the first major medical group to do so. A federal appeals court today, nobody asked about that, just upheld the Trump administration's policy of detaining illegal aliens, validating the strong measures that have driven illegal crossings to historic lows, and sent a crystal clear message that under President Trump, if you enter the country illegally, you will be detained and removed. The murder rate, again, not a single question about this, has plunged to a 125-year low as crime falls across the board, thanks to President Trump's crime crackdown. We also saw this week national median rents have fallen to a 4-year low following 6 consecutive monthly declines, and mortgage affordability has surged to a 4-year high. Home ownership is the core foundation principle of the American dream. And I will repeat that mortgage affordability this week surged to a 4-year high, but not a single of mention of that in this briefing room today. And again, this came out last Friday, but for an unprecedented 9th straight month, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. So we're going to get back to business. The president is very busy today, and you will see him all tomorrow at the event in the East Room touting his administration's energy policy. Thank you.
You know, before she goes, the one thing that I would get rid of the filibuster for is passing into law that is against the law to mutilate children. That's the one executive order that has to pass and be signed into law. If we don't protect our children, you know, who else? Then what else is it worth having in the United States if we're not going to protect the future from monsters and greedy doctors and these sick, perverted demons who want to mutilate children? You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. That needs to be a law. We need to be putting people in jail for shit like that. You know, if you want to be an asshole when you turn 18, okay, great. But if you're in puberty and all that kind of stuff, having your breasts removed and taking puberty blockers before you know how to, your brain is undeveloped, and that's demonic. So that one needs to be passed in the law, and it'll be worth busting the filibuster for. Another good press conference. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to say that part. Anyhow, listen, you know, thanks for stopping by. Hit the like button on the way out. I appreciate it. Until the next time. On Payne, marriage, politics, and sports. Over and out.